Episode 14 Kaundinya, the divine king who forged the Funan Empire. Every great empire has a founding myth, a story told for generations to explain its sacred origins. For Funan, the first great maritime empire of Southeast Asia, that myth is tied to a single name, Kaundinya. Who was he? A brave explorer? A Brahmin priest carrying the knowledge of India? Or a king chosen by the gods? History and legend have intertwined, creating a complex portrait of the man who laid the first stones of the Funanese civilization and the later Khmer legacy. But one thing is certain, the story of Kaundinya is not just the story of one man, it is the story of the birth of an entire worldview. Welcome back to the History of Southeast Asia series. In episode 14, we will delve into the ancient chronicles to illuminate the life and career of Kaundinya, the divine king who founded the kingdom of Funan. Part 1. The First Kaundinya and the myth of the Naga Princess, 1st century AD. What we know of the First Kaundinya comes from an invaluable source, the report of the Chinese envoy Hun-t'ien, who visited Funan in the mid-3rd century. The story he recorded is steeped in myth. The tale goes that Kaundinya, Hun-t'ien, was a foreigner, possibly from India or the Malay Peninsula. One night he dreamt of a deity who appeared, gave him a divine bow, and ordered him to sail east. Obeying the divine command, Kaundinya crossed the sea and reached the shores of Funan. At that time, Funan was ruled by a queen named Soma, Leah. Seeing a strange boat, the queen led her fleet out to attack. Facing danger, Kaundinya raised his divine bow and fired an arrow that pierced the side of Soma's boat. Terrified by this divine power, the queen and her entire army surrendered. Kaundinya then married Soma. Seeing that she was still naked, he folded a piece of cloth, cut a hole in the middle for her to put her head through, and dressed her. He also taught her to tie up her hair. From this union a new dynasty was born, the First Dynasty of Funan. This story, which at first sounds fantastical, contains deep layers of symbolic meaning. It is a local version of a classic Indian founding motif, the marriage of a foreign Brahmin and a native Naga princess, a serpent goddess. In Southeast Asian beliefs, the Naga is a symbol of water, of the earth, of natural forces, and of indigenous power. The Brahmin, in contrast, represents knowledge, religion, Hinduism, and an organized social order from the outside. The marriage of Kaundinya and Soma is therefore not just a union of two people, but a cosmic union, the union of foreign and native elements. It legitimized the rule of a new dynasty by showing that they carried both the divine blood of the Naga and the superior civilization of India. The union of male and female principles. It also symbolized the harmony between the masculine principle, foreign, active, and the feminine principle, native, passive yet powerful. This myth became the ideological foundation for Funanese kingship and later for the entire Angkorian Empire. It explains why the nine-headed Naga became the ultimate Khmer royal symbol, and why the symbolic marriage between the king and a Naga goddess was a vital part of the court rituals in Angkor. The First Kaundinya, whether a historical figure or a mythical symbol, laid the ideological foundation for the kingdom's existence. Part 2. The Second Kaundinya and the Second Wave of Indianization, 5th century AD. Centuries passed after the founding myth, and the kingdom of Funan developed, likely becoming increasingly localized. The original Indian customs may have faded, blending with local beliefs. And then, history records the appearance of another figure, also named Kaundinya. This time, the story recorded in later Chinese histories like the Book of Liang has a more historical feel. Around the late 4th or early 5th century, there was a Brahmin in India named Kaundinya, Pochunju. One day he heard a supernatural voice from a mountain proclaiming, "You must go and rule Funan." Kaundinya was overjoyed, and he traveled south to a place called Panpan. From there, the story tells that the entire populace of Funan, hearing of a man of great virtue, came out to welcome him and unanimously chose him as their king. After ascending the throne, this Second Kaundinya undertook a comprehensive reform. He changed all the rules to conform with the methods of India. This event is considered by historians to be a second wave of Indianization. What does this suggest? Reform. It implies that the Funanese court at the time may have become too native. This new Kaundinya, a pure Brahmin from India, was either invited or came on his own to re-establish the rules, laws, and court ceremonies according to the standards of contemporary Indian dynasties, possibly the Gupta or post-Gupta period. Continued exchange. It proves that the connection between Funan and India was not a one-time event, but a continuous process of exchange. Scholars, monks, and merchants traveled back and forth, bringing new streams of thought and culture. Consolidation of power. This reform may also have been a political move by the Funanese court to strengthen its power by adopting a more sophisticated model of statecraft and law that had been proven effective in India. If the First Kaundinya brought the founding myth and initial legitimacy, the Second Kaundinya brought structure and reform, reinforcing the Indianized foundation of the Funanese state. Part 3. The legacy of the two Kaundinyas, the foundation of the Funanese state. Looking back, we see that the two figures named Kaundinya, one mythical and one historical, together shape the two most important pillars of the Funanese state. The legacy of the First Kaundinya is one of ideology and identity. He brought a founding myth, providing a sacred and meaningful origin story that connected the dynasty to both native power and foreign civilization. The God-King model, indirectly introducing the concept of a ruler with an origin and authority that transcended the mortal realm, laying the groundwork for the later Devaraja cult. A cultural identity. The story of him teaching Queen Soma to wear clothes and tie her hair, though simple, is symbolic of the process of adopting new civilized norms. The legacy of the Second Kaundinya is one of structure and institutions. He brought a system of law and administration. His reforms systematized the laws and methods of governance along Indian models, creating a more organized and effective state. The consolidation of court culture. He re-established and strengthened the rituals, customs, and the use of Sanskrit in the royal court, turning it into a brilliant center of Indianized culture. Connection to the world. By renewing the links with India, he ensured that Funan remained part of the vast cultural and commercial network of the Indian Ocean. Together, the two Kaundinyas created a successful state model, a state with a solid ideological foundation, an effective administrative structure, and a brilliant court culture. This was the formula that helped Funan survive and dominate for over 5 centuries. Part 4. From Funan to Angkor, the immortal echo of Kaundinya. When Funan fell in the mid-6th century and was replaced by Chenla, and later by the Angkor Empire, the legacy of Kaundinya was not lost. On the contrary, it was inherited and developed to a new level of grandeur. The most obvious legacy is the founding myth. The Khmer kings of Angkor adopted the Kaundinya Soma myth as their own origin story. They considered themselves the descendants of that sacred union. The 9-headed Naga became the supreme symbol of Khmer royalty, appearing on all architectural works, from the balustrades of bridges to the bas-reliefs and the crowns of the kings. The Chinese diplomat Zhou Daguan, who visited Angkor in 1296, recorded an incredible story. He recounted that the people believed a 9-headed serpent goddess resided in the golden tower atop the royal palace. Every night, the king had to ascend the tower and unite with the goddess. If the goddess did not appear one night, it was an omen that the king's death was near. If the king failed to go to the tower, it was a sign that disaster would befall the kingdom. This story shows that more than 1,000 years after the time of the First Kaundinya, the myth of the union between the king and the serpent goddess was still a core belief, a vital living ritual of the Angkorian Empire. Kaundinya, whether one man or two, whether myth or history, is no longer the most important question. His name has become a symbol for the very process by which the classical civilizations of Southeast Asia were born. It was a process where foreign elements from India did not conquer, but combined, dialogued, and blended with indigenous cultures to create something entirely new and unique. The legacy of Kaundinya is the God-King state model, the myth of the Naga, and the ideological foundation that built wonders like Angkor Wat. His story is proof that a civilization is built not only through wars, but also by the power of ideas and the stories we tell. History has so many more stories to tell. To make sure you don't miss a single one, take action now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. Join us as we uncover the hidden corners of the past. See you next time.